How do you choose to make a difference? How do you use what you have to show up for your community? And as a woman, when you're faced with criticism and misogyny, how do you flip the script and turn it into something positive? Well, my guest today, Kimberley Johnson, is an author and a podcast host who does just that. She uses her platform to elevate women and be a vocal advocate for women's rights. You're listening to We Need to Talk.
So you got something to say that is on your mind. We need to talk about it. You know, just one conversation can change your life. We need to talk about it. We need to talk.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. My guest today is an author, a podcast host, and an activist for women's rights. Kimberley Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we have been Twitter pals
Yes.
for a while now. And I really love following you because I know a lot of our views are aligned. But the one thing that really drew me to a lot of your posts was your honesty and your commitment to truth, which you don't really get to see very often. And I love how vocal you are about women's rights. And while I know you care about a lot of issues, why have you really decided to make women's rights one of the main issues that you are really vocal about in your platforms?
Well, it was kind of I don't want to say it was an accident. It was just an evolution because my mom and I initially, in 2010, we put out a book called The Virgin Diaries, which we interviewed people about what it was like to have first-time sex. It was my idea, and she joined in with me because she's really good. She was always like an A student in school, so she knows how to write books and organize them and everything. And so we collected stories together. And then, we went online and we tried to sell the book. And then one thing led to another. And when Rush Limbaugh went on his rant about Sandra Fluke demanding to see her sex tape because she wanted to have insurance in private school, basically I think it was a religious college that she went to, but it was a college. She wanted to have insurance for like birth control, stuff like that. So she went to Congress and she spoke about it so eloquently. And Rush Limbaugh called her a slut for 3 days, and he was horrible. So I had a blog. I was, like I said, selling my book, and I wrote this open letter to Rush Limbaugh from a liberal slut, and it was sarcastic, and it was I was being, am I allowed to use profanity here?
Absolutely, yeah, go for it.
I was being a bitch because he was being an asshole. So, and that kind of like launched me into that whole women's rights thing. I was asked to be I belonged to, and it wasn't an organization. It was kind of, this woman started Rock the Slut Vote, and it was in response to that. And the idea is, if you want to say that women who enjoy sex or want to take birth control are sluts, then color me a slut, because you're not going to we're taking that word back. And then it kind of became this, again, evolution of me, because I wrote that one thing, and then I was asked to write for a blog, and I focused on women's issues. And then the interesting thing was when in 2012, I met a woman who introduced me to the fact that the Equal Rights Amendment hadn't been codified into the Constitution. At that time, they still needed 3 states. So I decided to make that my mission. And it was great because I was able to eventually introduce it to Alyssa Milano, and Alyssa just took off with it. I'm so grateful that she was able to get it out into the national conversation. She brought it, not that Biden wasn't aware of it, but she kind of brought it to him again, and he put it on his platform for 2020. So, and for me, I just feel like, and you'll probably hear me say this a couple times, I'm not an academic feminist. I'm like a Gen X woman. I'm just a regular person. And I feel like, I was fortunate in my life. I haven't experienced too much discrimination. I've experienced sexism. But, you're a woman. And when you're a woman, you see things, you experience things, and you see things that aren't necessarily fair. And so it's important to me that, the women who fought before me to make sure that my rights were secured, I would like to do as much as I can for the women, coming up.
Absolutely. You're paying it forward. But I think it's interesting that you make that point that you're not an academic in that sense, because I do think people think that they have to be at a certain level in order to start making a difference or having their voice heard. And that's not true at all.
No, not at all. And, there is a difference. I didn't go to school I didn't study women's studies per se. I mean, in college, I took a few classes. I didn't graduate college. I went on to acting. But while I was in college, I mean, I was interested in a number of different things, and women's studies were one of them, but it was never my specialty or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to go back to the comment that Rush Limbaugh said because I do remember that. And are you ever surprised by how people respond to clearly misogynistic comments in the defense? Like, I was always so surprised when Rush Limbaugh said anything, for example, but I kind of say I was kind of surprised that people defended him.
Well, that's always surprising when you're going to defend misogyny. And I mean,
Yeah.
what did she do? Again, this woman was so eloquent and she was so well spoken, incredibly sincere. And her friend had some kind of a cyst in her ovaries. And that was what, made her think of it in the first place. Like, we need to have birth control included in the insurance program because the cost was too much and whatever the deal was. But so anybody that would go against her, I'm not surprised by it, but it always does seem a little shocking that you would see anybody, whether it's with race. I've heard certain politicians say that slavery was good. I mean, when you hear those things, how do you even process that? You just think,
I know.
I'm sorry,
I know.
you're wrong.
It is mind-boggling, but specifically with women's issues, like, I mean, and race too. Obviously, I can talk very strongly about both.
Yeah.
But it is always surprising what people will justify,
Yeah.
in order to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
And I feel like specifically in the last 4 years, obviously that's one of the reasons we connected because we agreed on how things were going when Trump was in office. But even before Trump, where did you think we were in terms of women's rights, and where do you think we are now that Biden is in office?
Well, before Trump, I was active on the ERA thing. And I think I happened upon Alyssa Milano, I think it was in 2017. So in 2015, 2016, I guess I kind of put that on the back burner a little bit, not really, because I did go and see, I went to Netroots in 2015 and Bernie Sanders was there. My girlfriend and I made it our mission to get a hold of him, like to get him and talk to him about the ERA, which she was able to do on her own. I wasn't with her. And she asked if he would put it on his platform, and he did. Anyway, at that point, we still needed 3 more states. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And in case somebody who's not aware, the Equal Rights Amendment basically just says, equality of the sexes and no discrimination based on sex. This was written, I think, in 1923 by the woman who wrote the 19th Amendment, Alice Paul. And she was a Republican. It took off in the 70s. And then this woman named Phyllis Schlafly came and put a halt on it. Then Congress, because it would stop the ERA, Congress then put an arbitrary deadline. I think the deadline expired twice, and then that was it. They considered it to be over. And if I'm not mistaken, ERA is the only amendment that ever had any kind of deadline. Why? Because it's about women. But
of course.
yeah. So as far as women's rights go before Trump, in my view, I was working on getting that done and not sure we were going to go. Interestingly, when Trump won, and I say that in air quotes, when he was installed, in 2017, I believe, Illinois? No, Nevada. It ratified. And then Illinois ratified in 2018, and then Virginia ratified in 2020, which brings us up to the 38 states needed. Now, it should just automatically go into the Constitution, and it's not because of the arbitrary, deadline and all that.
Yeah.
So, beyond that, I think that it's very possible it cleared. It went through because Donald Trump was president, and I think it was kind of a reaction. Up until Donald Trump, when I was growing up, I'm 53 now, when I was in my 20s and watching things, I would have imagined by now we would have had several Black women presidents. I thought that was our trajectory. I just,
right.
I mean, I grew up with Free to Be You and Me and Sesame Street and the Electric Company. And, I mean, it was just my understanding that we were expanding with all of that. Now that Biden's in office, I feel like, I mean, when Trump was in office, I don't want to make it sound like all was good for women, because they let go of the Violence Against Women Act and the horrible abortion bills were passed. I mean, there were so many negative things.
Right, right.
Um, and of course, now that Biden's in, they're trying to make it up. But I think the bigger picture is we saw how women reacted across the globe in 2017, the day after his inauguration,
Yep.
his poorly attended inauguration.
What are you talking about? There were millions of people there.
But I think that this holds true in any scenario, feminism or any kind of scenario. When people are made to feel uncomfortable or threatened, they engage, and so we
Mhm.
saw that. And I think Trump engaged, made women say, "Okay, I can't deal with this. I don't want to live in this country or in this world that's going to have a man like him running things." And the United States, which is a BFD, I wonder what would have happened with Hillary Clinton. Now, the ERA, she could have talked it up. She could have said, "Hey, everybody, let's support the ERA." Doesn't mean it would have passed. I think maybe if Hillary Clinton would have won, the general public would have said, "Hey, we got a woman president. We don't need the ERA. We don't need."
Yeah.
So maybe he did help that along. And I think it's up to women now because Biden is president. He's only, Congress is only able to do so much because we have such a slim majority in the Senate. And I think it's us, it's you, it's me, it's everybody out there. We have to make sure, just like in 2017 when we all marched with the pink hats, we have to be the difference. And so I think
Yeah.
things can progress, and they kind of are. But right now we're on this edge of a cliff, and I won't know more until the election.
I think you're right. And I think there's also so many layers to it that people don't realize. Like, for example, I think we talk about equality a
Hmm.
lot in terms of gender equality, but something that I don't feel like I hear a lot of people talk about is gender equity.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that has to be brought into the fold as well. So for you, what does gender equality look like and what does gender equity look like? And how would you explain those terms to people that are unaware of the difference?
Well, I would say with equality, it's more about like equal pay. So you have a man doing the same job as a woman, and then, they should be paid the same. Equity is a little bit different. Equity is recognizing that we don't all start from the same place and that we have to make adjustments in order for everybody to be included if there's imbalances. And the perfect example of that is the Supreme Court nominee. Biden won,
Mm-hmm.
and he promised ahead of time, just like Reagan did. He said he was going to get a woman. Nobody cared. But now that it's a black woman, everybody's like, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God."
Up in arms. Yeah.
And they're so worried about what is the word they're using. I can't remember the word, qualifications, as if
Yeah.
I mean, they're putting it out there like, and I've seen men on the left and on the right say, "Oh well, you should just act like you're looking for the best person and then choose the black woman." Like basically, please the white supremacists and please the people who are afraid of black skin, please them, and then go, "Okay, sorry, but I'm still going to do it anyway." I mean, it's like no, and I wrote an article. It's a horrible article, but it was, I think, in 2018, and it was titled "No Prison Time for White Men Who Rape Women and Children." And so it
Hmm.
was a number of I just collected all these stories of white men who literally, some of them raped babies. And the white male judges were like, "Oh, well, they're wealthy, so they can't go to jail. No jail time, no punishment." There was a kid, like a
Yeah.
teenager, who raped a baby on tape. It was on camera. No jail time. The judge was white. And so equity again, we absolutely need more diversity on the bench. Black women would be great, but I'll take, Asian women, Hispanic women,
Any
men.
form of diversity for the love of God.
Yeah, so because we need, that's what America looks like, and we need diverse perspectives. Because if you're a white person, even if you grew up poor, you have a privilege, and you
Yeah.
have a different
Yeah.
perspective. So yeah, that's, to me, equality is like we should all be getting the same for doing the same work and making sure that everybody, it's equal time. But equity is different. Equity is all about, let's make the playing field fair for everyone, because there are
Yes.
obstacles that people of color have that white people just don't.
And it's interesting though, because when I've had these conversations with people trying to explain that to them, it's hard to get past them even thinking that people of color still have these disadvantages because they think when slavery ended, everything was equal, or when civil rights even happened. But some people go as far back as saying, oh, well, slavery ended, like everybody's equal. But no. So how have you had conversations with people on the other side trying to make them understand, or do you not even go down that path?
Oh, well, I do from time to time, and I'm pretty much a shut-in right now because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I try not to be too like when I'm out and about with my friends because of course this is all the stuff I want to talk about all the time. And then I
Right.
think, okay, I need to shut up. But when people are open to it, I do try to like I'll give you an example. And this was not necessarily about equity, but one day I posted about the ERA and a conservative man replied, and I think his reply was, well, what rights do I have that you don't? And he wasn't a jerk. And so I said, well, I gave him this website, and it's why the Equal Rights Amendment. And I'm going to look up right now what it's equalrightsamendment.org/why. And it's great because it offers all these different, it's not just about equal pay. It's about,
Mhm.
paid leave, maternity leave, issues with, when women are pregnant and hospitalization. There's all these kinds of things that people don't think about. It happens with rape, but there's Title X stuff. There's all kinds of issues that we don't even like. All we think about is equal pay. So
Yeah.
I told this guy, take a look at this. Just read through this website. It doesn't take very long. And he actually did. And he said, you know what? I agree with all of this. I'm for the ERA.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
occasionally you can reach out and talk to somebody, but people do get confused about what this all means. And it's like you said, oh, slavery's over, everyone's equal. I mean, the Supreme Court was like, oh, well, we had a black president, so that means there's no more racism in America. It's like, what? What? Very easy for these white people to say. I mean, I know there was
I know.
Clarence, but he's one guy, so.
But he's also Clarence
Yes,
Thomas.
he's also Clarence Thomas.
That's like, oh man, I feel like I can speak for the black community and say that we don't claim him that often.
Yeah, we don't
Um,
claim Susan Sarandon over
yeah,
here.
that's true. That's true. You don't claim Susan Sarandon. That's hilarious. That's so funny. You know, it's funny that I'm glad that you shared that website with him and that he actually went to it because for me personally, when I've talked about specifically, let's say like Black Lives Matter, or even defund the police, people are so focused on the branding and the marketing and the phrasing that they don't actually do the
100%,
research.
yeah.
And while you don't want to, coddle everybody and cater to them and like we hold their hand while they read a website, like I really do wish people would not focus on headlines. We're such a headline culture
Mhm.
and nobody actually wants to do the work to
Yeah.
see and read. So I'm really surprised, but also grateful that you were able to get him to
Me
read the
too.
website.
Yeah, me too. Because it is difficult, and I mean, I do think it's important that we come up with slogans and headlines that are easy sound bites because we are dealing with a culture, like you said. They don't like to go beyond the headline. They don't understand what's in it, and so if we are, this is the sad reality. And no matter how good an idea is, if it's not presented in a way that's easily digestible and understood right at the start, we'll lose. And that's just a sad truth. And
Yeah.
I mean that it doesn't matter what area, it doesn't matter what issue. It's we live in that culture that we need to have things be so easily understood, or we just tune out,
Yes.
or think the
Absolutely.
wrong thing about it.
And it's unfortunate, but it's just the way that it is, sadly. So we do have to, the moves that we make, we have to keep that in mind
Yeah.
in wanting, if we want to make any kind of progress or change. And so for you also, what aspect of society do you feel like is still lacking in terms of female representation? Because I know, we're excited about now there hopefully going to be a black female on the Supreme Court, but I feel like there are so many other aspects of our society and in our government where we're still lacking in just female representation as a whole.
I'd say almost everything. I mean, I'm
Right.
not kidding. I mean, yeah, we're seeing more women in Congress, and that's great, but we need more. We need it 50-50. And, I'm not,
Well, we're seeing some of the wrong women, but
we're seeing some of the wrong women, but you know what? It's still, as much as I may disagree, I mean, I'll go with Liz Cheney. I don't like Liz Cheney. I
Hmm.
believe she is part of the reason why we're in this situation. I think that her votes helped lead to Trump. I really appreciate where she is right now, and I'm grateful that she does recognize the importance of democracy, and that they can't, if the Republicans right now get their way, it's full on fascist United States, and she recognizes that. But
Hmm.
she got us here. She is one of those people that got us here. And
Hmm.
what was the question again? I went off into
Just yeah, but just aspects of society that you still think
oh
still
right,
need female representation. But
right,
I was saying that, like, in Congress, and the loudest female voices that we have, like, you have like Lauren Boebert and
right,
Marjorie,
right, right.
whatever, three names, whatever her
Yeah,
name is. But like, those aren't the representatives that we want as women,
no,
you know?
no, but here's the line. It's like, yes, absolutely, conservative women deserve to have a place, even though if I
Absolutely.
don't agree with them. Now, Lauren Boebert and
Absolutely.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, I don't consider them conservative. I consider them autocratic, fascist, and horrible white supremacists,
Yeah.
all the bad names.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think that they do, and I agree with you on that. But it's like, as much as I may not like a Liz Cheney, as much as I may not like, I don't know, list off some of these old school, like Lisa McCroskey, she's been okay. She's helped save the ACA, so I'm grateful for that. But then she votes against other
Hmm.
things. So, you know, definitely, I think we need to have representation of every, kind of person. And
For
I'm
sure.
talking the political ideology. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think in the grand picture, women have to. We're still in a patriarchy. Men still control everything. They control business. They control Wall Street. They control entertainment. They control government. And so it's just, I think, over time we have to. We are doing it, but it's a slow roll. And I mean, I
Yeah.
really do honestly. And on the bench, we need more women on the bench.
I agree. Where do you think the fear is, or comes from, rather, that if more women were in positions of power? Because I don't think that people realize that equality doesn't mean taking something away from somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
I have that conversation so many times with people. I'm like, making things equal is not taking anything away from you. And
No.
I've said it slowly like that too, and they still just, well, I'm sure you've heard these
Oh,
arguments too.
absolutely. I think the fear is there is something to be taken away, and that is the patriarchy. And there are
Hmm.
a lot of men who, like liberal men, who are basically good men, who still kind of roll on the patriarchy when it suits them. And it may be subtle, it may not be the Donald Trump version of patriarchy and the hostile misogynist, but there is still sexism, and it's always in degrees. And so it just, I mean, I think that men fear losing the control, and of course it's primarily white men. They've had the
Hmm.
control since the beginning of this country, and the idea that other people are going to come along and take some of that and take away their ability to suppress and oppress, I think that's what scares them. And I really don't understand why human beings have that need in the first place. I don't
Yeah.
know why they
Yeah.
want to oppress and suppress. I don't get it, but it does obviously make them feel superior.
Yeah, and it's also just it's in the DNA of this country, unfortunately.
I mean, yes, we've come a long way, baby, and all of that, but we haven't come as far as again, going back to my 20s when I was young and not really paying attention to politics. A girlfriend of mine loved Bill Clinton, and that, I mean, my mother was always a Democrat, so I was kind of like a Democrat by default without really. I was liberal for sure. I was always a feminist. I didn't walk in and announce it every time I walked into a room, but I
Yeah.
always felt like, hey, man, we should be fair and equal. And so in my 20s, again, growing up watching those shows, even during conservative Reagan years, watching, just I was a kid, I'm a Gen X kid, I watched all the sitcoms. And you would see, like, for instance, there was that Different Strokes episode where the two little boys weren't allowed into the white club, and how Mr. Drummond was so upset. And you got these messages to be good and to be fair. And I just thought that we were going to keep going that way, and it was going to expand. And I think to a degree we did. I mean, we've had some conservative presidents, but the social atmosphere in our culture has always been, expanding with social issues, whether it's gay marriage or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, this thing that's happening to our country right now, I believe, it is a direct backlash that we had a smart, capable Black man running the country for 8 years.
Absolutely. No, there's no doubt in my mind that that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And Chris Rock made a funny joke. He was like, Bush gave us Obama because he was so bad. And they were like, oh, let's give this black guy a chance. And then Obama gave us Trump. He's like, is Trump going to bring Jesus back? Because
I
they
know.
can't get
Please.
right. But it's interesting. We have gotten to this place in society where, to me, it isn't even just like Republican versus Democrat anymore.
No.
And I feel like in the past, you were able to have civil conversations. But I don't know how we're going to get past this Trump era, this Trumpism, because it's terrifying. If I can be honest, it actually is very terrifying to me.
It is. It's terrifying. I mean, it's terrifying to me. And I mean, I think about women of color, and I think about myself. I was just saying on my podcast, as a woman, with all this misogyny that we're experiencing, now I'm a white woman, I'm privileged, I'm very tall. I think the tall thing helps me. People leave me alone because I'm tall.
I love it.
Have big bones.
I love it.
But it's like I have a kind of a commanding presence. But at the same time, just as a woman in the world now, like when I go to the grocery store, when I'm doing my thing, I'm not freaking out. I'm not like, oh my God, is somebody going to shoot me? I don't think like that. But in a general sense, the anger and hostility is growing in general. And, I mean, I live in an area that's pretty populated with Black people. And I wonder, am I going to be out and about and some crazy white supremacist is going to come and do something horrible? Pick my area. I mean, my area is diverse. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I mean, I see a lot. I'm living on the East Coast now. I live in Maryland. When I was young, I was born here, lived here until I was 9, went to Southern California and was there, and then Northern California until 2018. And then I came back here. And I was really pleased to see actually how much diversity there is here. Because it's like now it's, I mean, you see everybody. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everybody. But it scares me because I feel like as a woman now, I am extra vulnerable because white supremacy and misogyny go together like peas and carrots. It's like, I don't know if these white supremacists are going to mess with me. And it's terrifying. And I feel like a Black woman, I can't even imagine what it is like to walk in your shoes. I would not try to imagine, but I can guess that, whatever I'm feeling, it's going to be multiplied for what you're feeling.
Yeah, it's true. And I feel like, at least from my personal experience, I go through this checklist of like, okay, I want to make sure that I just go to where I need to go. Let's say I'm going to the store.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make eye contact with certain people that I might, it's that type of thing that I have to go through.
Yeah.
Or if I am communicating with someone, I have to go through the checklist. Okay, make sure I speak this. You have to go into the code switching. Make sure you talk this way so that they don't view you as a threat or view you and don't piss anybody off. So yeah, there is an extra layer of things that Black women definitely have to go. Oh, it sucks. Absolutely. But women as a whole, like,
no, I know.
There's so much we have to think about. Yeah.
And it's funny because I mean, I don't get out very much right now. And so
I don't either, so I get it.
One of the things that I do all the time is I go to my grocery store, and there are 2 Black women that I pretty much, there's the one I see on Saturday, and she's like, I mean, I love her. And then there's a new one that I see on Wednesdays when I go. And I always talk about politics with them. And it's funny because one of the things that I think about because of Trump, and I didn't think this before Trump, but I thought, okay, do people think I voted for Trump because white women as a Black voted for Trump? And do they think I do? And I don't want anyone to think that. So, I mean, I'm not going to wear a sign, but what I try to do is I'm friendly and I want to make sure I smile at people. I don't care who you are. I give out compliments if they're genuine. If I see someone wearing a pair of shoes that I like, I let them know because I want to.
Yeah.
I think there's so much anger. And so these women that I work with, sometimes I mean, I honestly feel like saying, why aren't you more angry? Because they're so nice and they're so friendly. And, when we do talk about politics, we agree for the most part. But it's like there's one that I have known for several years, and I mean, I love her. And I know she feels the same. We hug each other, and we haven't hugged during COVID, but we hug each other. And it's like this woman works 7 days a week, and
Mm.
she's always friendly and happy. And I mean, I'm sure behind the scenes she's got whatever going on, but outwardly, and I feel like, how can you be so happy? Because I'm terrified. And it's like, I think she's a generally happy person. She just comes off
Mhm.
that way. But yeah, I mean, it's I think that the overall feeling in this country right now, for people who are really truly paying attention, it's very tense. And I think we're all just kind of concerned about big violent events, whether it's insurrection number two, or things blowing up. I don't even like putting it out there, but
I know.
that's it's scary.
What are you hoping, specifically with this administration, that will make progress on that you didn't see while Trump was in office?
Well, I mean, I would love if we could, get that build back better and really work on climate, because no matter what, racism, sexism, bigotry, that all doesn't matter if we don't have a planet
Amen.
that's healthy and we
Amen.
can live on it. So I definitely want to see more movement in climate. And, I mean, I hope that, I genuinely believe if we can overcome, if we're successful, if Democrats are successful in 2022, if we can get more Democrats in the Senate and possibly more Democrats in the House, there's a huge opportunity there to protect elections for 2024. If we can, I don't know if we're going to get this voting rights
Yeah.
bill. I hope that we do, but if we don't, we need to make sure to show up in huge numbers, because it's really the difference of fascism and autocracy versus a thriving democracy. And I don't know what would happen if Biden says, all right, I'm going to run again in 2024. And let's say he wins and he makes it all the way to 2028. Who's going to be the Democrat? Is it going to
Mhm.
be Kamala Harris? Is the country going to be ready for a woman, period? Because even though they did vote for Hillary, the Electoral College got her, and the
Yeah.
cheating got her. And I look at any woman, I mean, it doesn't matter who it is, a woman of color's, again, going to have a harder time. But are
Yeah.
we ready for that? Is it by 2028, are we going to be solid enough that we can say, all right, it doesn't matter what you look like, if you're a woman, if you're, black or Hispanic or Asian or whatever, are we going to be there yet? I don't know. I don't know. But I hope that we will consistently, in the process, because right now Biden is doing a fantastic job getting judges, confirmed, and he's got a really good diverse cabinet, and then we're seeing more women in Congress, and if he puts a black woman on the Supreme Court, we've got
Mhm.
that going for us, and it's just going to, I think it'll keep going, and eventually we'll get to having a woman president, which we
Yeah.
should have had years ago, but eventually we'll get to it. And I think and then I think we're going to have to deal with the backlash from that,
Which
whatever color
unfortunate.
she
Yeah.
is.
It's just unfortunate. Because I want just like get over it. Get over it. It's like it's a woman. What is the problem?
People. And oh my God, women have proved they're fantastic leaders. It's like we've already proven it.
One hundred
It's out
percent.
there. So
100%.
yeah, and I mean, of course, there's the Sarah Palins of the world, and we
Mm-mm.
don't want her. But there are of the capable women, and there's
For
capable
sure.
conservative women
Absolutely.
too. So, I mean, just like it's ridiculous to suggest that women can't handle, a role
Which is
in
so
leadership.
funny because if you think just like, in typical households that people talk about, husbands don't make
Mom is
moves
the leader.
without their wives making this decision. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like
Totally.
you I think women have kind of proven that they can be in charge because they run the household despite
Yeah.
what husbands think. And that's obviously just for heterosexual relationships, but like that's just the truth. Like my husband, God bless him, like he's a
Yeah.
lawyer. He makes way more money than I do, but he doesn't do anything without asking me, consulting me, seeing if it's okay, asking me like they can't even go to the
Yeah.
grocery store on their own sometimes. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I don't understand what this thought process is that a woman couldn't run the country. I'm digressing because this gets me upset.
Yeah.
But other than your own
I
voice,
know.
who are some other women that you think people should be following and really listening to because they're very, very vocal about women's rights and human rights issues as a whole?
Well, I mean, obviously, I love Stacey Abrams. She's like the woman of the year, and she's my favorite right now. I think she's amazing. And you know, I'm always going to have this really special soft spot for
Hmm.
Alyssa Milano because, again, I introduced her. I was fortunate enough to be in a DM group with her, and I put it out there about the ERA, and she, you know, I had wanted somebody like her to take it on. I mean, I didn't have her in mind, but I just thought, okay, somebody who's got a huge platform, somebody who's going to do more than just
Yeah,
tweet once about it and to feel as passionately as I do. And it just happened that she just
amazing.
took it and ran, and I'm so grateful. And then, you know, really, I mean, there's big names. Obviously, I could take the big names. It's different, you know, we're not in the 60s, so there's no Gloria Steinems now, and there's, you know, it's not the same way. I think really, honestly, the people that I follow are just sometimes just the individuals on Twitter that I think like you or Patricia
Mm-hmm.
Arquette or there's just a number of people out there. I think there's, I mean, you could also say Nancy Pelosi. She's amazing. That woman
Yeah, yeah.
blows my mind. She's so good at what she does. Even if you don't agree with every
She's good
little
at
thing
her
she
job.
does or says, she's
Hmm.
unbelievable. I mean, don't mess with that woman. And you know, I mean, and also Hillary Clinton
Yeah.
and Kamala Harris. I look at somebody like Kamala Harris, and you know, it's so amazing to see this gorgeous Gen X woman in such a high position. It's unfortunate that that top position is just so difficult
Yeah.
for them to get to. But it's, you know, I mean, I one of the things that she said when during the inauguration that I will never was it the inauguration? No, I think it might have been the DNC. I don't remember, but she said, you know, democracy is something we have to fight for every day. It's not a
Hmm.
given. And I'd never heard anybody say that. You know, I mean, I understood it to be true, but she said it and it crystallized in my mind. And you know, again, watching her do her thing with Brett Kavanaugh, she's an amazing woman. So it's like, and of course, there's Michelle
There's so
Obama. I mean,
many.
there's
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
many women out there, yeah, who are inspiring and uplifting. And so, yeah, I mean, and again, and it's not just the big famous ones. It's the people who are out there every day. There's JoJo from Jers, you know, she was on my podcast and she's funny and she's smart and she's adorable and I learned
Yeah.
things from her. So it's like I think that, you know, there's a lot of us out there who are important and we have a
Yes, and
lot
you
to do.
absolutely are one of them. And thank you so much for just being on my
Thank
podcast
you.
and chatting with me. Can you let everybody know where they can follow you and listen to your podcast as well?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm author Kimberly on Twitter, and that's Kimberley. Don't forget that extra E that my mom stuck in there just to make everybody confused. And then if you go to my Twitter, you'll see a link tree, and that'll take you to everything. My podcast is Start Me Up, and so that's what is it? Patreon.com/Start Me Up. But you can again find that all in the link tree, and it's just so awesome to be on your
Of
show. Thank you so
course.
much. I
Oh,
love
thank you.
you.
I adore you. You're amazing. And to the listeners, thank you for your weekly support of We Need to Talk. Make sure you like, comment, share, review, and most importantly, subscribe. Thank you to Stephen James, our theme song writer and producer. And remember, everything begins with a conversation.
We need to talk.